In Albion Online, gathering is one of the most profitable activities in the game. So naturally, people ask all the time, where is the best place to start? So today we are breaking down each of the 5 royal cities that can be found on the main continent, as well as each of the resources that you'll be able to find in those specific biomes. So starting off, looking at the main map, we have 5 royal cities here on the royal continent. So we have Bridgewatch, we have Lymhurst, we have Fort Sterling, we have Thetford, and we have Martlock. Now, the first thing you're going to notice is that each one comes with its own unique biome. So, we've got Bridgewatch, which is the steppe, or some people may call it the desert, but it is officially titled the steppe. Martlock is the highlands. Thetford is the swamps. Fort Sterling is the mountains. And, of course, Lymhurst is the forests. Now, one of the most important things to note about each of these biomes is no single one of them is going to have all 5 resources. They each only have 3. So they have a primary resource, which you're going to be able to abundantly find in the form of nodes and mobs. It's going to have a secondary resource, which you will still also find both nodes and mobs for, but to a much less abundant extent compared to the primary resource. And then you're going to have a tertiary resource, which only has nodes. So now I'm going to break down each of the 3 resources you're able to find in each of the 5 biomes. So if you want to go ahead and jump to the biome that you're looking for, I'll have the chapters down below in the description of this video. And if there is a specific question that you haven't had answered yet by the end of this video, be sure to drop a comment, And if I've answered all your questions, be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. I thank you very much for your support. So now let's go to the first biome. So the first biome we're going to be talking about today is going to be Bridgewatch's biome, or the steppe, or the desert, whatever you want to call it. It's clearly very sandy, but technically, like I mentioned, it is officially called the steppe. Now, when you're in a zone, any open world zone, and you want to know what resources you're going to be able to find out there, first thing you're going to want to do, press N, and that opens up your minimap. So right here at the top right of the minimap's interface, you're going to see the resources available in that zone as well as the tiers. So I'm in Fractured Ground, which is just outside of Steppe Cross. So this is basically newbie zone, basically your starting area. So it has tier 2 to 3 of hide, fiber, and ore. So out here is going to be hide as a primary resource. Then if you run around for a little bit, you'll find ore as well. And then I know we just passed some. You'll also find fiber. Now, not all the time are the tertiary and secondary going to have mobs in every zone. That's not always going to be the case. But as you can see out here, there's only mobs for skinning. The thing to know about skinning is that every single thing is needed to be killed. There's not going to be a node and then a mob like there is for the other 4 resources. So you have to kill everything in order to get skin. Now, birds, hyenas, wolves, basically everything that is like this, I don't have my tools on me, those count as nodes. So those are the static nodes, and I did air quotes there. Hats, on the other hand, hats count as skinning's mob. So what that means is the mobs are always going to have a full bar of resources. And again, I don't have my tool on me or I could demonstrate that. A full bar of resources. So whether that's 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10, 11 out of 11, 7 out of 7, the mob is always going to have full bars of resources. Whereas the node is going to have, could be 1 out of 5, it could be 5 out of 5, it could be 2. It really depends on the tier of the node. So tiers 2, 3, 4, those tend to respawn very, very quickly. Later in tier 6, 7, 8, you'll notice nodes having 1, 2, 3 instead of a full stack. It depends on the tier and how long ago it's respawned. So if you're sitting here and you're just farming these, and you're just farming, and you're farming, and you're farming, and you kill a bunch, and you sit here and you skin them all, and then one new one respawns, and then you kill that new one may not have full stacks. Now, because these are tier 3, now that one could have full stacks because it's super low tier, but if you're fighting like a hyena, that's not going to be the case of tier 6. So again, you're going to be able to find the nodes out here. of fiber and of, we'll gallop until we find one, of ore. Now, the best places to check as a gatherer is always going to be around the edge of the map, or if you look on the map, these dark splotches are basically kind of like resource, not necessarily POIs, but they're kind of like little resource hotspots. So see, we've got all of this ore going on right around this, excuse me, right around this big clump of stone. So these big clumps of stone, you're going to find a lot of ore. You're going to find a lot of stone and stony resources. But you go over here to these little ponds of water, you're going to find a lot of fiber. So like we'll move to this big pond. So big pond here, run around it. You got, excuse me, fishing opportunities as well as fiber. So the little watery spots are going to be really good for fiber. The stony spots or the rocky spots are going to be great for ore, great for stone. So now let's move to the next zone. Now, before we get into the next zone, I do want to backtrack a little bit and kind of correct myself because I do admit when I'm wrong. And earlier in the intro of the vid, I said that the secondary resource, you're going to find mobs and nodes of that in the zones where that resource is secondary. I was incorrect. I got it in my head. I was thinking of the swamp, and the only reason you're going to find mobs of both fiber and skin in the swamp, and we'll get to that and I'll show that, is because, of course, as I just explained, skinning everything is a mob, quote unquote, with cats being the only mob and then everything else counting as a node for gathering. So skinning, you'll find, or the swamp, you'll find skinning and fiber mobs. So I do want to backtrack. The only mobs you'll find in zones is going to be the primary resource. Everything else is going to be a node variant. So now we'll jump to the next zone. And the next zone we're covering is Martlock Zone, or the Highlands. So the Highlands out here, you're going to find wood, you're going to find stone, and you're going to find ore. With ore and wood being the secondary and tertiary resource, and stone being the primary resource. Now, a disclaimer for all you gatherers watching this and learning for the first time, or maybe you're new to gathering, you're not going to want to start in Martlock. I'm very sorry to all the Martlockians out there. I'm not trying to hate on your city, but the simple truth is stone has the lowest value out of any of the 5 resources. Any of the 6 if you include fishing. Stone just does not have value, and if you want to see that change, let SBI know down in the comments below this video. Scream at the top of your lungs, we want more uses for stone. But eventually, you will want to level up because at tier 7, tier 8, stone does start to have a pretty nice value. So, if you're looking for stone as a primary resource, you're going to want to come out to Martlock. The third stone we'll be covering is the swamp, or the Thetford land. So out here in the swamp, you're going to find wood, hide, and fiber. Now, like I mentioned earlier, fiber is the primary resource out here. So you're going to find the nodes, just like this one right here, as well as the mobs. But because it also has skinning, and skinning only exists on animals, you're also going to find mobs of the hide. Now, keep in mind, when I say mob, I mean this is an entity. What I mean by node is this lizard counts basically as a flax node, just like this. Whereas if you want to find something hide-based that counts just like this dryad up over here, you'd have to go into Bridgewatch and fight a cat. The cat is the only one that counts as a entity mob for gathering. Or not entity, as a mob for gathering. Whereas everything else just counts as an entity, like an NPC, like one of these things right here. So you kill this, and it has a chance of not having full stacks. You also gather it significantly slower. Now, while we're in here in Thetford, and we're talking about the resources available in each zone, something to note are these things called treasures. Now, let's see if I can get a little closer without triggering these guys. Well, instead I triggered those guys and the snake. Fantastic. And I couldn't trigger those things. But as you saw, that treasure right there, it is a bigger node. It is bigger. That one specifically was enchanted 2.1. Now, those will always have 30 ticks of whatever resource that it is. And you'll be able to find treasures of whatever the 3 resources are in the zone. So technically, if we were in here, we could find a fiber treasure if we waited long enough. We could find a wood treasure. And of course, we can find a hide treasure. Now, treasures, they do not regenerate ticks. So it's not like the mobs. It's not like the nodes. They do not... Once they're gathered, they're gathered. A common strategy for gathers, especially in the lethal zone, this doesn't necessarily apply to the non-lethal zone because there's no risk out there. But in the lethal zone, you'll leave 1 tick left on the treasure, because once you gather the full thing, it will disappear from the map. And that is basically like sending up a signal flare to potential player killers or gankers that say, hey, I'm here, I'm valuable, come kill me. So that is something to note about the treasures. On to our 4th zone. Now, our 4th zone is going to be the mountain zone. So that is Fort Sterling's area. So this is going to be able to find stone, fiber, and ore, with ore being the primary and stone and fiber being secondary and tertiary. Here is where you would find the elementals, excuse me, the elementals, or as I call them, the golems. That's basically what they are. Big, stony, rocky monsters. So out here, they're going to be the mob, and everything else is going to be in node form. Now, while I'm running around out here, one thing I would like to draw everyone's attention to is on the map here, you will see the symbol of a resource. Typically, so these are called resource hotspots, or dynamic resource spots. And here you're going to find a lot of the primary resource of that zone. So you're going to find a whole bunch of nodes, and as you can see, we're also finding a whole bunch of mobs. This is also going to be a really condensed spot for the enchant rate of the zone, which you can also find next to the resources available. So this zone has a 17% enchant rate. Now, this is a red zone, so this is full loot. This is dangerous. Be careful when you go here. I also need to watch out. But as you can see, we've got a bunch of 0.1s. We passed a 0.3 on the way into the zone. We've got a 0.2 right here. So these are really good for gatherers. But when you're in a lethal zone like what I'm in right now, you do have to be on the lookout, because any normal ganker, like any ganker with half a brain cell, which is the average brain cell capacity for most gankers, they're going to know, if I want to kill a gatherer, where do I go? Well, gee willikers, I'm going to go to the gathering hotspot first, and I'm going to check for any easy prey there. So always, always, always be on the lookout. There's our 0.3 right there. Always be on the lookout for gankers, PKers, player killers when you're in these zones. But you can definitely make a pretty penny when you're in these. And again, you can find these in any zone with the primary resource of that zone. So you could find a fiber one in the swamp. You can find a stone one in the highlands. You can find a hide one in the steppe. Now, the hide one will just be full of animals that you need to kill, whether that's cats, hyenas, birds, bears. Not bears, because bears actually aren't in the steppe. But the terror birds, hyenas, those will be, as well as the cats. Now, again, as you can see out here, the treasures, they'll show up on the map just like this, and you can find them of any type of material that's in the zone. So we've got 5-1 stone, 6-1 stone, and 6-1 fiber. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the primary resource when it comes to treasures. And now onto our final zone to discuss. And that final zone is Lymhurst, or the forest biome. So out here, you're going to find wood, stone, and hide, with wood being the primary, of course, as well as hide being secondary, stone being tertiary. So out here with the hide, of course, it's going to be all animals, usually in the form of these boars and these bears. The wood, you're going to have nodes like this tree right here, as well as these ents, or as they're called, spirits, but, you know, they're ents. That's so I call them that. You're also going to find my personal least favorite mob in the entire game. That's right, in the entire game of Albion Online, my least favorite mob. Bears. T5 bears. Now, yeah, they've got their little slam, easy to avoid, but if you want to fight these, they're annoying. They'll redo that slam periodically throughout the fight, and they're super tanky. So, yeah, that's just personal feelings about bears. Not a fan of them. So, those were the 5 biomes of the royal cities on the royal continent. So, again, We've got Bridgewatch, which is the desert or steppe, being primary to hide with secondaries of fiber and ore. Then we've got Martlock, being the highland biome, with primary of stone, secondary being wood and ore. So again, you're probably not going to want to start here because stone is just so low value. Then you've got Thetford, or the swamp biome, where you will find a primary of fiber with a secondary of skin and then a tertiary of wood. The mountain biome, home to Fort Sterling, where you're going to find a primary of ore as well as fiber and stone. And then the forest biome with Lymhurst, where you're going to find a primary of wood as well as secondary and tertiary of skin and stone. Now, those are the royal continents. Now, when it comes to where to start, most people are going to want to say Bridgewatch because skin inherently does have higher value. Now, personally, I would advocate for Fort Sterling or Thetford as well, because while hide does have good value down here in Bridgewatch, it's also very, very oversaturated. Everybody wants hide. Now, hide is great, yes, but if you go into any zone, you're going to find hide gatherers. You're going to find people camping high-value hide spots with the high enchant rate, and it's going to be really hit or miss. So, for consistency's sake, I'd advocate more for ore out here in Fort Sterling, or if you really want hide, go to Thetford, because fiber's really good, and you'll still find skinning out here. Now, Lymhurst, the only reason I don't advocate for that, even though it does have hide, is because wood isn't exactly the strongest valued either. I'd honestly rank it above stone, but below ore, hide, and fiber. So it comes in 4th place for me. That being said, a few honorable mentions that we're going to discuss, and that is going to be the Mists, the Roads of Avalon, and the Black Zone. So starting off with the Black Zone, you're going to scroll up. So this is your royal continent on the map, right? You press M, you see this, and then you scroll up, you see this much larger continent. This is the Black Zone continent. Each royal city, Thetford, Fort Sterling, Lymhurst, Bridgewatch, Martlock, has a portal that leads to a portal town in the Black Zone. So small, it's got everything you need. It's got a bank, it's got a marketplace, it's got an artifact foundry and a repair station. That's all you really need out there. So each city has a portal town. Now, most portal towns are going to start off surrounded by their biome, but they are not going to exclusively have their own biome surrounding it. So, as we can see, right, Martlock's portal, it is surrounded by some highlands, but then if you go just 2 zones away, you have a small little splotch of steppe, small little splotch of mountain. You go down this way, small little splotch of swamp, and then over here, small little splotch of forest. Then you get further closer to what's called the inner ring. Again, you're going to have splotches of highland, you're going to have swamps, then you're going to have a forest zone over here all by itself, mountains. So it's going to be kind of hodgepodge, sort of jigsawed. Way over here, closer to, all right, we're closer to Lymhurst, we're closer to Fort Sterling, we've still got a bunch of desert zones out here. So same rules apply, 3 resources per, same 3 resources. This is full loot. You are going to get a lot more value out of the resources out of here, but it is also going to be a lot more dangerous. So mentally and financially and physically prepare yourself before you adventure out into the Black Zone for your first gathering experience out here. The next of those 3 zones that I want to talk about are the Roads of Avalon. So Roads of Avalon portals are found on almost every single open world map, whether it's yellow, blue, red, or black zone. You're going to find them on almost every single open world map. This is what they look like when you get close to them. This is what they look like. This is what they look like on the map. And when you go in, this is what they look like inside. Now, in Roads of Avalon, they have the chance to have any of the gathering materials. So this one specifically, it's got fiber, it's got ore, it's got wood, it's even got a wood treasure. It does not, the resources accessible in the Roads of Avalon does not correlate with the resources accessible in the open world that you enter it from. So if you're entering from a mountain zone, like what we just did, do not expect to only find mountain zone resources, because wood is not a mountain zone resource, right? Only ore, fiber, and stone are. But yet we still have a wood treasure, and we have a wood spot. So I call these hotspots or gathering POIs, but they're basically just the gathering spots. Now, again, this is black zone, this is full loot, this is a danger zone. So again, mentally, financially, and physically prepare yourself before venturing out into these. Now, when it comes to tiers of resources in this zone, it won't tell you on the minimap. I don't know why my minimap's being weird, but it won't tell you on the minimap, but the lowest tier that roads will go to is going to be tier 4. So if you enter from a blue or a yellow zone, resource tiers that you're going to find in those zones and those hotspots is going to be tiers 4, 5, and 6. If you enter from a red zone, like what I'm doing here, tiers that you're going to find in these zones are going to be 5, 6, and 7. And then while roaming, you are able to find portals that look like ones like these, but golden, not this kind of golden, but golden and gray. And those are tier 8 zones where you can find tier 6, 7, and 8 resources. So you'll be able to find all resource tiers, tier 4 and above, in the Roads of Avalon. Now, I also have a Roads of Avalon guide, which I will link to this video, that exclusively breaks down the roads, all of its mechanics, what these rings mean, what the portals mean, how to find resources, all of it. So I'll link it to this video, and if you need to brush up or want to learn more about the Roads of Avalon, go give that a check. Now, the final of the additional zones that I want to talk about is going to be the mists. So just like Roads of Avalon, you're going to find these wisps on almost every single open world map. You will also find them inside the Roads of Avalon. Now, these mists, or these wisps, are what lead us into the mists. So in the mists, just like the Roads of Avalon, but a little bit different, you're able to find all 5 resources. So see here, up here, we can find wood, stone, hide, fiber, and ore. So inside the mist, you can find all 5 resources. So mists are very good, but very basic, I think is the right way to say it. What I mean by that is mists tend to have the lowest of the 3 lethal zone enchant rates. But the thing about mists is they do come with a non-lethal variant. So I entered a mist from a red zone, which brought me to a black zone or lethal mist. But if you enter from a blue or yellow zone, you will find lower tiers, but it will be completely safe. Now, yes, the yellow zone maps technically say they go up to tier 6, but I very rarely have ever seen tier 6 materials in a yellow zone. But as you can see in this tier 6 black zone map, we're finding tier 6, we've got tier 5s. I'm pretty sure if I wander around enough, I'll find a tier 4. But mists also enchant. So the one we went into was a common one, but you can find uncommon, which are green, rare, which are blue, epic, which are purple, and of course the ever sought after legendary, which are golden. And those will scale not only the enchant rate, but the tier of resource that you find in the zone, with legendary giving you guaranteed tier 8 resources when you enter into a black zone mist. So that was a full and comprehensive breakdown of every zone you're able to gather in Albion Online. If I answered all your questions, I'm very happy that I did. And be sure to like and subscribe. Like this video and subscribe to the channel because I put out informational content like this all the time. And if I didn't answer any of your questions or you have a specific question you would like answered, drop a comment down below with that question. I will respond to every comment and every question to the best of my ability. So thank you all so much for watching. I very much appreciate everybody, and I will see you guys next time.